Katkin and Matt Dugan.
Guys, I think we got to finally pour out some for my boy T-Rich. I know this is the wide receiver podcast, but my boy Trent Richardson cut from the Raiders.
Oh, God. I'm glad we got that out of the way early, at least.
Ryan Clark, did you see what he said?
No.
Trent Richardson is the worst running back in the history of the NFL. That's what Ryan Clark said, former Pittsburgh Steelers safety. I guess Washington Redskin too, if you want to remember the olden days.
You can't even make the 75 roster for the Raiders. that really tells you something. I just thought it was funny. You're talking about the jokes you saw. I saw a bunch of them today. It was
no, Clark wasn't joking. I think he was being serious.
Did you know Peyton Manning has a longer single run, like of 33 yards? That's more than Trent Richardson's longest run ever. Wow. So Peyton Manning has a longer run than Trent Richardson does in his career.
That's impressive. Yeah. That's hilarious. Yeah, that's good.
There was so many memes going out today that I thought were funny.
Listen, Trent's having a freaking rough day and week. Do we really have to keep piling it on?
No, you got to hear them. I got to share them. Trent Richardson, while leaving the Raiders facility today, there was an open door for him to leave, and he immediately crashed into a closed door and fell behind 5 yards. There was another one about it was 20 yards from his locker to his car, and it still took him 14 attempts to get all of his stuff into his car. Stuff like that. But
maybe he had a big locker.
Maybe the Browns will re-sign him.
Hey, you know what though? We're all laughing at him, but guy got $600,000 guaranteed just to
listen. T-Rich is still my boy. I still have his signed jersey. It is still going up in my man room. I don't even care.
Yeah.
He'll always be my boy. I'm gonna die with him.
Maybe someday some other player with the last name Richardson for the Browns, and you can actually enjoy.
He's got to wear the number 33 though.
A lot of things that have to happen. But
hey,
we're young.
Reggie Bush. There's a new guy in the Saints wearing number 25 for the Saints, and his last name is Bush.
Ooh, I like. Yeah, there you go. That's
there
true.
You go. You get to reuse it. You get to pull out that old jersey and be like, "Yep, I've liked him ever since he was on this team," and kind of roll with that.
Does Trent Richardson jersey get fat too, like him?
I don't know.
Will it grow with you through life? Because let's face it, we all put on a few pounds, I think. Or at least I am. I know that.
I don't know. That's probably just you, Matt. All right. That's enough of that. Let's. Well, actually, no. Wait. You know what? I do want to talk about one other thing. Fred Jackson getting cut real quick. Again, I know it's the wide receiver podcast, but he gets cut. Supposedly, the GM went a little rogue on this, but I mean, I think that could just be talk because hey, everybody in Buffalo likes Fred Jackson. I think that might just be a little bit of talk, but. McCoy now may not be ready for Week 1, and everybody else on their roster is injured. Carlos Williams injured, Anthony Dixon injured. If McCoy misses Week 1, who's the running back to pick up, and do we care?
Bryce Brown.
I think Bryce Brown's injured too.
Throwing it back in time here, back in the Michael Vick days in Philadelphia when he had those couple of huge games in a row, obviously. A talented guy. I've always liked him. Can't really hold on to the football, and there's obviously other concerns that people have that I can't obviously tell because I'm not behind the scenes. You can't ever get on the field. I mean, who else is left? It's got to be him, right?
Bryce Brown's injured as well, so just throwing that out there.
I should probably know the sixth-string running back in Buffalo and if they're hurt or not. Let's be honest.
It's going deep, pulling deep.
So are these mics working this fucking podcast or what?
Yes.
All right. Everybody can hear me? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
Last podcast was rough.
Now we're pulling out commercials from
Marcus
like 1995.
all right, we'll just tell everybody. Marcus and I were put in the corner last podcast. We were bad, and that's why we sounded like we did.
Talking in the cans.
Now we're all just filibustering Rob, so we can't talk at all. We're just going to keep talking over.
All right, have you spoken yet? I'm sorry. Take a second, will you?
Give these guys mics.
Rob, let them know you're here. All right, let's jump into the wide receivers, guys. First off, Antonio Brown, number one guy on everybody's board. Just agree. Just moving on.
Yep.
Nothing to see here. Officer Barber 80.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Although you're on record saying someone else.
I mean, I don't know. I'm still. That was weeks ago. I can change my mind.
Yeah.
This is a revolving.
That was weeks ago in 12-pack deep, probably.
Well, and you see the way Tate's been playing this preseason. Because yes, I did say Calvin was my number one, but I'm going to change my
Wow,
mind.
that's-
And Antonio is going to be my number one.
That's crazy. Let's just go with the number 2 guy. Is Calvin your number 2 guy then? Please tell me no. Please tell me
I
no.
think I'm coming around to no. No, he's not. I'm really liking what Tate has been doing this preseason, and I mean, I don't think you can go wrong. There's a big grouping of guys here at the top of the list of wide receivers that could easily be the number one by the end of the season, and Calvin is absolutely in that mix, no doubt.
See, for me, there's 3 guys all in line for the number 2 spot. It's Dez, Demarius, and Julio. I take ODB out of there just because I got to see it more. For me,
Demarius and Julio. You said?
For me, it's Demarius because he's just been so consistent. Lots of receptions, lots of yards. Not as many touchdowns as Dez, but enough. So for me, it's Demarius because I think he's going to be a little bit more consistent. And I think with Julius not being there anymore, the touchdowns are going to go up. What do you think, Rob?
I'm a Julio guy, number 2, and it's that offensive line and that run game is atrocious. That defense is atrocious. He's really all they have, I see, as a big threat. Obviously the targets are going to be there, and I'm a fan of Matt Ryan. So over Romo, over dare I say over Peyton at this stage. So for me, I'm a Julio guy, number 2.
I don't mind that. Just got paid. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think he's the guy you got to worry about that with, really. Obviously, Supreme...
Dez right in that boat, though, too.
Yeah.
And Demarius.
No, I know.
And Demarius. Oh. They all got paid.
And Brown just got restructured as well. Antonio.
Yeah, he was already getting paid,
Pittsburgh.
though.
Not being paid like he should be paid. Let's face it, he is probably the best in the league.
Steelers were smart with that one. They re-signed him to his big money right before they get rid of Wallace.
That's a franchise that generally does not restructure deals, so this was interesting to see them do. Actually, not him, but 2 other guys.
Heath Miller and Swisham, I think.
I forget who exactly.
Heath Miller was one. I think the other was Swisham.
I was
Thank gosh they locked up
late
Swisham
today to the podcast because I was pretty busy. So I missed
Lock up that kicker. By the way, for everybody wondering, the Kicker podcast is next week.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be the longest one of the day. There's a lot to talk about with that, including my disappointment in Blair Walsh, but that's for another day. Where the hell was I? You just got me off track. Kicker's my favorite. I love to talk about kickers.
We're talking Julio, Dez, Demarius.
Yeah,
who's your 2?
So for me, number 2, the train of thought I have with Demarius is I'm just worried about Peyton, but it's more... What's the matter with me? Why would I be? It's Peyton Manning. He's never going to die. I think you're splitting hairs here. Rob, one thing that the offensive line being so pathetic in Atlanta can maybe hurt the big playability of Julio. So that's one thing that he can excel down the field where he's not going to have time to get down that field. So that's one thing that can kind of scare me about them. But you're splitting hairs. I mean, I don't know how you rank them. I really don't. I guess I'm supposed to, so sure. So after all that, I'm actually going to say Dez is my number 2. But like I said, I think you're splitting hairs.
Speaking of splitting hairs, Odell Beckham, guys, I am clearly on record as
he has nice hair.
Yeah.
Hating this guy.
Is it splitting?
Splits him good, too. Blonde right down the middle. I'm clearly on record as not liking him.
Speaking of splitting him right down the middle.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm sure we all saw the picture that was released of ODB going down on that chick, splitting her right down the middle. So, all right, go ahead, continue.
How do you even follow up with that now? How do you transition? How do you transition from that to
right
back to
down the middle? That's what he did, without doubt.
He definitely did. Where do you guys rank ODB? I'm way down on him. I will not own him in any leagues because someone is going to be crazy enough to take him before me. Out of all these guys we're talking about right now, does he have the talent of these guys? Maybe, possibly. But out of these guys in this category, I feel like all of these guys have a much, much, much better quarterback.
You know how your parents used to say, don't make that face, it's going to stick? That's kind of the look I just gave when you said it. Is his talent on their level? Maybe. I don't know if my eyes are ever going to close.
That look was kind of like, was that a fart? Did a little bit of shit just come out?
Ridiculous. I mean, yes, he's clearly on their level and everybody's level when it comes to talent. I don't know if other people are on his level, to be honest.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think so.
who would I take over him just because of longevity, I guess? I'm going to go Antonio Dez, Demarius, Julio, Calvin.
Yes.
And that's where I'm stopping. I'm going
yes,
going ODB
after
above
Calvin.
AJ Green.
Yes, after Calvin, maybe I might take Green ahead of him.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at it a little bit more. I think I have ODB higher in my rankings. I don't know. Rob?
I'd take him over Calvin myself because, as you mentioned, the talent's there, and Victor Cruz isn't going to be eating into his production as much as maybe some people initially thought.
Eating.
Point is, he's the guy, and
You're getting off the rails really early tonight.
I'm trying to bring us back here, but yeah, Eli knows it. New York knows it. He's the guy, and there's no doubt. I think the toughest part about these wideouts to me is that you're not seeing a ton in the preseason. We're watching all this football, but none of these guys are showing us anything to make us feel one way or the other. So.
After Jordy and Calvin, I can see them protecting them.
Yeah, and rightly so.
Randall.
ODB has a catch this preseason, right?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he does not have a catch this preseason.
So what? Neither does Calvin.
No, I know.
Calvin hasn't played.
But
I mean,
exactly, but with that, you got to look to last year and the end of last season. There's nobody better. So
probably ever in that stretch. He was just insane.
Amazing.
This next tiering of receivers: Randall Cobb, T.Y. Hilton, Alshon Jeffrey, and I don't know. Should I throw Mike Evans in that group?
No.
I don't. Yeah, I was gonna say I have him outside of that group. So those guys, Jeffrey, Hilton, Cobb, rank them. I have them Jeffrey, Cobb, Hilton, and Cobb I think is very close to me. You guys know in our home league I ended up taking Cobb ahead of Jeffrey just because I wanted to kind of diversify a little bit because I have Jeffrey in a lot of leagues. How do you guys rank them?
For me, it's Cobb, then Jeffrey. With the with the injury to Jordy Nelson, Cobb could finish number one, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. Going back to that little saying, I've been using
really?
a lot. Yeah, yeah. You kidding me? Without Jordy, he trusts him, and Aaron Rodgers trusts him, and it is going to be next man up, and I don't think there's going to be a huge downfall in the offense because Jordy's not there, but he's their deep threat. He's the guy that can kind of do it all for them. But as far as Cobb, he's the same way. You can do whatever you want to do. Guy's a great talent, even out of the backfield. So for me, Cobb goes ahead of Jeffrey, but I could see why you'd say that. Marshall's gone. He's the unquestioned number one there in Chicago now. So I think they're close, but the fact that Nelson went down, there's a whole lot of targets to be made up for, and I think Cobb's going to get a few more. That's all.
And I'm probably I know I'm the lowest on Jeffrey for all of us because I would go Cobb, Hilton, Jeffrey. Ironically, each of these guys have given their owners scares this preseason. None are in tip-top shape right now, ready to go. But situation-wise, your argument for Cobb is similar to your argument for Jeffrey right now in that they're the ones for their respective teams. Hilton, I still think Hilton has a fine season. I think obviously there's more weapons in that offense than the other two, but for me there's something about Hilton's big playability. And
see, I'm way down on Hilton. I'm really big on Andre Johnson. I think Andre Johnson has a better season than Hilton. Take out ADP, take out draft position.
It's definitely possible, but Hilton has a year with luck. He has that trust, that chemistry, which I don't think you can overrate. Early on, Hilton will have the big games. I guarantee it. Johnson will have maybe a touchdown here or there, but he's not going to have any big games right out of the gate. Just my opinion.
Going back to Cobb real quick here, too. Led the Green Bay wide receivers last season with 29 red zone targets. Jordy Nelson right behind him with 28. The next closest Green Bay wide receiver was Devontae Adams at just 11.
Yeah, let's face it, Aaron Rodgers threw to those two guys and kind of nobody else. Looking at the targets, and obviously he spread the ball amongst the other guys, but
not really though. Like I just said,
I know. I'm saying the other ones all got a little bit of work, but those two, Jordy and Cobb,
those are the red zone guys.
So I think Adams is going to kind of fill right into that role. I really do, and he's a guy that you really got to reconfigure your rankings on and what you think about him, because I don't think there's going to be a huge drop off, and I'm not slighting Jordy. I just think Aaron Rodgers is that good.
You know what's really interesting looking at Cobb's red zone statistics? 11 games last season with 2 or more red zone targets. 11 games with
he's
2 or more.
Extremely quick in a little bit of space.
It's very consistent. I mean, like I said, Nelson right behind him with 28 total targets, but Nelson not nearly as many games, much more up and down. 5 1 week, 1 the next. 4 the next week, 0 the week after that. You know what I mean? Just very up and down. Cobb very consistent in the red zone for them.
Going into last year, I had Cobb above Jordy, actually. Obviously, it was wrong, although not by much. But I love Cobb. I do think he is the better player, I think, than Jordy. I really do.
All right, let's break into a couple of sophomore wide receivers from last year. Actually, 3 of them real close in ADP here. Actually, let's just throw Matthews, I guess, in there. 4 of them. So Mike Evans, Brandon Cooks, actually DeAndre Hopkins, a third-year guy, but Jordan Matthews. Let's talk about those guys. How do you rank those guys? For me, I have Evans pretty low on that list, lower than most. I have Cooks ahead of him, and I think from what I'm seeing in the preseason, Hopkins ahead of him as well. What are you guys' thoughts?
I agree. I mean, for me, I have Cooks above Evans. I have him after the, Alshon, T.Y., Cobb, whoever you're going to put at the end of that list there. I have Cooks next. I think he's a guy that's a potential breakout. And one thing I really love about him is I watched an interview, and I'm sorry I don't remember who interviewed him, but it was with Drew Brees himself, the guy who actually throws those passes in. They asked him, hey, your boy Jimmy Graham is gone. I'm obviously paraphrasing. He's the guy you look to in the clutch situations, the red zone situations, and in most situations. So who is your new guy? Who's going to be the guy you're going to kind of hang on? He, without a second thought, immediately said Brandon Cooks. He said, Brandon Cooks called me start of January in the offseason asking me when I was ready to start working out, and I told him, I'm an old man, Brandon, I need a little bit of time, but as soon as I'm ready, I'll give you a ring. So he was itching to work from instantly, last offseason. And without a thought, like I said, that was his first guy he thought. So when your quarterback's the one that's saying that, similar to Aaron Rodgers last year saying, or 2 years ago, that Cobb, he expected to see at least 100 receptions. These are the guys who are making those decisions split second out on the field. So I love him this year. I really do. I think he's an extreme breakout contender.
Rob?
We're looking at Evans, Cooks, Hopkins, and Matthews?
Yep.
For me, Matthews is at the top of that list for me.
Wow, really? All right.
And probably not the popular pickup there. This Philadelphia offense, I'm buying in. I don't know how anybody's not. And
I'm buying into it. I don't know if you're going to know week to week, is it going to be Matthews or is it going to be Aguilar? Or is it going to be somebody like Zach Ertz?
Oh, definitely won't be him.
Or are they going to go... well, maybe
when
not.
Are people going to stop this Zach Ertz?
Yeah.
He hasn't been able to consistently stay on the
Aguilar,
field.
I'm like, okay, maybe.
Not because of injury, because they want to play Brent Selleck because he blocks.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's...
What changed? He's still there.
Or maybe they just go to a ground and pound game now with Matthews and Murray. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think there's a lot there that... I don't think it's so sure shot that it's going to be Jordan Matthews as the number one receiver.
Well, Jesus, you asked him the question. All he was doing his answer and let him finish.
Well, Jesus Christ. All right.
Yeah, so Matthews I have at the top of that. Then with Matt, I have Cooks. Cooks second.
No, not with Matt. I had him first, but go ahead.
Well, for all the reasons
none of us had Matthews first for the record, so you're not with any of us on this.
Well, against everybody, I have Cooks next. Hopkins, I'm putting Hopkins third, and then I'm lowest on Evans. Evans, he's still going pretty high in drafts.
I don't get the Evans love.
Yeah.
I don't.
And
I get it from what he did last year, but I think it was fluky. I think all those touchdowns were fluky.
Well, the difference, it's similar to ODB in the sense that they blew up, they had some huge games. The difference is ODB's was consistent. Evans was concentrated to those, that 4-game stretch.
3 or 4 games.
Even,
yeah.
3 or 4, whatever it was, that 3 or 4 game stretch. And when most of your production is coming in such a short time and you're a rookie without a proven track record, not to mention, Vincent Jackson, ASJ, like a few other weapons in that offense to eat into his production. Anybody that says Vincent Jackson's going to be less than 2 touchdowns this year is crazy.
That was a freak.
And I think that it's at the expense of Evans.
So actually, I didn't even finish, guys, but After Cooks,
We don't want you to
Stopped
finish.
right at
We're
after
just
Cooks,
done.
I'm also with you kind of as far as Hopkins would be after that for me. But then
I like Hopkins a lot.
I have Matthews ahead of Evans as well. So we're all kind of similar as far as the Evans love is not here at Blindside Football, I think.
Yeah, for Evans last year, 1,051 receiving yards, 458 came in 3 consecutive games,
Yep.
12 touchdowns with well, actually, to go back even a 4th game there. Actually, no, 3 games. In those 3 games, 5 out of the 12 touchdowns. So almost half of his season production in those 3 games against Cleveland, Atlanta, and Washington, all defenses you could really throw against. So maybe if you're playing in daily leagues, maybe you pick Evans when he has those cherry matchups like that.
One thing though, I do want to say is I do love Evans' talent. He's a guy that really. So I don't think the touchdowns were fluky just because he's one of those guys. He's one of the best guys as far as going up and just getting the ball in the NFL. He's a beast. He really is a physical specimen. He's a tough, strong guy. He's got speed. He's got great leaping ability. So there's just the thing that scares me with him is I think Vincent Jackson may be, again, their number 1 target guy. So I've always been a guy that likes the opportunity, the targets, the touches, things like that. And I think, like you said, Rob, there's no way only 2 touchdowns is going to happen again for Vincent.
Feel free to call me crazy, but going back to Hopkins, I could see him making an ODB type leap this year. He has that great catchability.
Unbelievable.
And just like ODB, he's going to be the number 1 guy now this year with Johnson being gone. He's going to get a lot of targets. I could see him being that guy this year that, right now the 14th wide receiver off the board according to Fantasy Pros ADP. I could see him being a top 5 wide receiver.
Me too. And he really was extremely consistent last year, which was one thing you really liked. There was few blow-up games, but he was extremely consistent throughout the season. I had him on my roster. He was a guy that you could always just plug in as your wide receiver too and kind of count on that 7-8 points at worst. Unbelievable talent. I mean, ODB obviously made the greatest catch I think I've ever seen, and most people will say. But before that, there was a play that DeAndre Hopkins caught that I thought was otherworldly. It was, I think, called back. It was a penalty of some kind, like holding or something, but it was just absolutely insane that he did that. And he makes plays like that. He's similar in that regard, of absolute freak of nature, definitely, in a good way.
So is it just situation? Is it just because Mount's throwing him the ball? Is that why?
Well, it's Hoyer. It's Hoyer throwing him the ball, unfortunately. He was
Mallet, I'd probably like him a little bit more.
Yeah, he was awarded the job, although there has been a really nice connection this preseason with Hopkins and Hoyer, and I mean, I agree with you. If he's top 5, I'm not surprised.
So, this next, I guess, tier.
We skipped Emmanuel Sanders completely, and is that because he's kind of after all those guys?
There's a reason for that. I don't know. I'm just not a big Emmanuel Sanders fan.
So just make sure we throw the name out there, but none of us are.
I think last year was really
Rob,
really fluky.
Yeah.
I can't get behind the Emmanuel Sanders
Although,
love.
there's a lot of hate and the value. He's going after all these guys in most drafts, isn't he?
No,
he's
ahead
not
of
saying
them.
so.
He's going ahead of them. It's Evans and then Sanders, according to Fantasy Pros ADP.
Oh, okay.
So
I agree. If he falls, there's some value. It could happen again, no doubt. But I don't know. For some reason, I always overlook him.
yeah, there is a reason. It's fluky. I think for me it's fluky. I don't see it happening again. But this next tier, I guess the next tier is probably pretty big. It's a lot of guys, honestly, that I'm not targeting in my drafts, except for, like I said, a guy that I really like, Andre Johnson. But skipping past Johnson, I mean, Edelman, Cooper, Tate, Keenan Allen, Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin, Sammy Watkins. It's a whole lot of meh. I mean, honestly, if any one of those guys is going to pop, I'm kind of interested in Deshaun Jackson, just because Kirk Cousins is now the quarterback there, and he typically does very well with Kirk Cousins. I know it's a small sample size, but he does very well with him. I don't know. I can't get behind really any of these guys.
There's 2 names you mentioned in there that really jump out to me, guys that I'm targeting. One, and Matt will agree, I know.
You better not.
Because we were talking about him the other night.
Yeah,
but
we were.
Amari Cooper. And
Stop.
And his
Listen,
draft stock.
His route running is...
Yes,
Go ahead, Rob. Let Rob.
He is good, but Derek Carr, Oakland offense,
They have a connection. And the way that Cooper's running routes, it doesn't even matter who the hell's throwing him the ball.
He ate up Patrick Peterson the other night. Patrick Peterson looked like an average cornerback It was insane.
Yeah.
I mean, the route running ability that this kid has is just incredible, especially considering you're talking a rookie. I mean, he looks like a 10-year veteran running routes. I'm telling you right now, he had Patrick Peterson freaking running circles. I mean,
He looked lost.
it was insane.
Yeah.
He was no match for him. And then we're talking about a rookie wide receiver. And David Carr had a good rookie year.
Listen,
Rob,
Matt,
you go ahead. Go ahead, though.
we know you
I'll
like
let go.
we know you like your Oakland offense, your Latavius Murray,
Yeah,
your
but
Amari
it sounds like
Coopers.
Rob does, too.
This is Rob's chance to talk.
Well, and targets. I mean, even if it is Carr, it's targets, and he's going to have a ton of them. So, for me, Cooper was the first one that jumped out on that list.
Wait, hold on. Yes, Oakland top 10 last year in passing attempts, and I hear the whole target talk. But again, going back to last year, Derek Carr, top 10 in pass attempts in the league, named the number one wide receiver last year for Oakland. And what did he do? Nothing.
It was not even close to this kid's level.
I understand.
It's fine.
Very different
All
talent.
right,
Different level talent.
Have you gotten much of a chance to see him?
I have not. Honestly,
So
I have
just
not.
Watch a couple.
The
watch-
Oakland offense, I just can't get behind it. I don't know. Maybe it's because they're moving to LA. Maybe that's going to bother me. I don't know. I don't know.
That's a good.
Sorry.
Reason. That's a good reason. To
And I'm
avoid
seeing-
a guy like
and-
that.
I just don't see it. Like I said, a lot of pass attempts last year. Nobody could really get it done. The Oakland offense is just abysmal to me. I don't want any part of it.
And you see in some PPR drafts, I've seen him go as early as late third round, early fourth. So the value is, if you were drafting, a few weeks ago, the value was probably just about right. Now it's creeping a little high, but even then, I think he can still produce like that. The second name that jumped out before I was interrupted about 8 times throughout that conversation was Macklin. He's a guy I'm targeting in that 6 to 8 round, preferably in the 7th or 8th. But I think his ADP is where's his ADP here?
56th overall,
Okay.
23rd wide receiver off the board.
Okay, so yeah, that 5th, 6th round. So so for me, I'm targeting him in that range, and it's strictly from eye test and pass production. He's looked great this preseason. Granted, completely different offenses, that he's in now as opposed to last year. But he showed the talent last year. They're working him in different formations here. He caught a touchdown out of the backfield in the second preseason game. They're trying to get him the ball, and I think that'll be a theme throughout the year. So that's the second name that kind of leaped out at me.
I think last game Kansas City had 3 passing touchdowns to wide receivers in the preseason, if I remember correctly. Which
Listen, Alex
I know it's
Smith.
the preseason, but
Alex Smith used to throw touchdowns to wide receivers. Believe it or
he
not,
used to.
It used to happen.
it's just when you have Dwayne Bowe, you might go, "Fuck that! I'm not going to throw to that guy."
I know it. I know it feels like a decade ago, but it used to happen, and I think that's what's driving Macklin's ADP down, and it shouldn't because, like you said, totally different scenario. Macklin versus Dwayne Bowe, it's night and day, and I'll take Macklin. I'll take Macklin over Watkins. I'll take him over Tate. I'll even take him over Cooper.
I'll take him. I'll take him over everybody but Cooper.
Yeah.
And that stands for me. I mean, I've already been looking for ways to try to trade for Cooper. Who's got him in our league?
Who knows?
I
Next
think
grouping.
my turn already went, right? Because I interrupted Rob like 6 times. I don't have a turn anymore.
Yeah, we're moving on.
We like Andre Johnson though, right, Drewin?
Yeah.
We all love Andre Johnson, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of knocked him a little bit earlier, but that offense and luck compared to what he's had it's exciting.
Yeah.
Julian Edelman banged up a little bit. We'll know more about Brady probably by the end of the week, but Edelman is just kind of, I guess with Edelman, you know what you're getting. You're getting 80 to 90 catches, you're getting 1,000 to 1,100 yards, and you're getting 5 to 6 touchdowns.
You like him more in the PPR, and he's a very solid wide receiver, even 2 for you, don't doubt, in a standard league.
Not exciting.
Not much high upside, you know?
Yeah, not exciting. Just
Not
kind
a guy I ever find
kinda
myself
safe.
with, unless he just falls and plummets to the end of the draft.
Which I think it's kind of funny because none of us are excited by Edelman, but it seems like a lot of people this season are excited by Jarvis Landry, who seems to be almost a Julian Edelman clone in kind of what he's getting, what he's accomplishing. How do you guys feel about Jarvis Landry?
I'm right there. I mean, I see them as very comparable. I think what you're seeing is, people in fantasy, they often don't want to draft the safe pick. Like you said, we know what we're getting out of Edelman. Landry, the range of what he can produce is completely up in the air. He's unproven. So for me, it's almost like you're kind of chasing the risk a little bit, but the reward I don't see is that much higher. So
I thought Landry had a great season last season, and I really liked him going into this season until they brought in Kenny Stills, until they drafted Devontae Parker, until they brought in Greg Jennings, Jordan Cameron, all these other receiving options just kind of drove him down for me because it's making him much, much less of a wide receiver one for me because even if he's the number one option on their team, 100 targets, 110 tops, you know what I mean? Because there's so many other people.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see. If he runs the same percentages as Rodgers does to his 1 and 2, it's irrelevant how many receivers they bring in, But with that said, you're right. There's definitely there's more tools than last year. So at least you assume that means less of a percentage for Landry.
I mean, I think the fact that they took a guy with a 14th pick overall when they had other holes on the team, no doubt, tells me that they probably didn't believe they have wide receiver one potential in Landry. I guess unless you're Matt Millen back in the Detroit Lion days when you have Roy Williams and then you draft, Charles Rogers, was it?
Yeah.
Very rare you see that, so I think that's a little telling. Like you said, they brought in, but also, I mean, the type of offense, they spread the ball around, so let's get as many weapons as possible. We got a young quarterback, and Philbin is kind of on his last string here. I think Landry's going to have a nice year. I just don't see huge upside with him because I think by the end of the year, Parker's going to be their number one guy. And he's actually practicing now, and he's a guy that I think you can, I'm going to have Parker on my rosters way before I have Jarvis Landry, just because of where you can pick up Parker right now compared to Landry. I think by the end of the year, you're going to rather have Parker anyways.
Except in our home league, because I got him.
That's true. Yeah.
Two guys in here that are kind of oldies but goodies that stick out to me, two guys that I really like this season, Brandon Marshall, Vincent Jackson.
I like them both.
Brandon Marshall I really like now with Fitzpatrick. I think Fitzpatrick gets it done, obviously, a lot more than Geno Smith does. I really liked him as a passing quarterback. Geno, obviously, more mobile quarterback, but Fitzpatrick, I think, is a little bit better passer than I think a lot of people give him credit for. And then Vincent Jackson, we just talked about the touchdowns being fluky with Evans. I could see Vincent Jackson with another 1,000, 1,100 yards this year and getting back up to 6, 7, 8 touchdowns. Where do you guys have these guys in your rankings? Rob?
I'm a big fan of Marshall. Obviously, I drafted him in our home league, and he was the guy I was targeting. There are obviously some names I like better at that point.
What round did you take Marshall in?
Early fifth.
Was it fifth?
Matt went really high on him. He was grabbing him early. Yep. I was surprised by that.
But Vincent is in the same boat for me. I think they're really flipping a coin either way.
I like Marshall a little bit better just because he's going to get more receptions for you, so he's going to be a little bit more steady.
Yeah, but both guys have a extremely qualified, very talented other guy with them, so that's the only thing kind of holding them back a little bit, I think. We got Decker in New York, and then we got Evans in Tampa Bay. But I think Marshall is still the best wide receiver on that team. Decker's a good player, but I like
absolutely.
Marshall better for sure. And like you said, Fitzpatrick has looked competent this year, and he's put up some decent games where he's not going to really hurt your wide receiver if you've got one that he's throwing to. So I still think Marshall is Marshall, and it's he's a guy you were drafting in the second, third round last year, and that you can get now in the fifth or sixth. So I like him. I really do. I think he's going to have a bounce back season.
Yeah, I don't see even why he fell off so much. Like what happened to
It's the fear of him going to New York.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but for me, it's not even that much worse. Granted, the Cutler-Fitzpatrick comparisons, it goes Cutler's way, but not that drastically. So for me, I'm with Matt. Marshall he's the same talent, granted a little older, but the opportunity I think is similar. Decker, I think, helps him. Obviously he's not the only guy there, but for me, that's the fifth round is still a little too. It's right about right for me. I don't feel like I'm getting a steal there in the fifth round with either of those guys.
Yeah, I feel like fifth round is where Marshall will finish if you were to kind of look back and draft based on end of the season results. Moving on though, because we got a lot more people to talk about here. Matt, kind of two of your boys, maybe one of your old boys and one of your new boys, but Martavis Bryant, obviously his ADP is getting pushed down now with the suspension, and Mike Wallace, your new guy in Minnesota. How do you feel about both those guys? I mean, we know how you feel about Martavis Bryant, but now
Isn't
4-game
it great,
suspension.
too? Everyone else is starting to feel like,
No,
call me a fucking fortune teller if you want. That's fine. I just didn't predict
please
the
don't.
marijuana addiction. A lot of people have. Well, you can't be addicted to marijuana, right? Idiot. Multiple failed tests. I mean, Jesus. Millions of dollars in front of you. Superstar potential. Smoke later when you retire at 33. Go ahead, but you can buy the best you've ever seen. Like, what are you doing? Stop. It's unbelievable to me. It was so disappointing. You know, he's a guy that I've been talking about for a year now. It's just, but I think one thing that I kind of like, and it didn't really happen in our home league, and I was hoping it will. I think, especially now with the drafts that are coming up here, a lot of people are still waiting for those drafts. You know, we draft a little earlier than I prefer, but the fact that the 4-game suspension happened, it's going to make him plummet in the drafts, and I think you're going to get some serious potential, some serious value. You know, like the Arian Foster type thing.
Yeah.
You need him for the, you know, you want to win most cases, most importantly, I mean, in the playoffs, right? So get there, and if you got a guy like him, how exciting is that going to be? So for me, if you're asking me which one I like, it's still Brian, even with the 4 games missed. There seems to be a little, recently, the last couple of games, a little bit better chemistry with Wallace and Bridgewater, and I have a train of thought that thinks they were kind of just trying to take it a little bit easy in the start of the preseason. Last couple games, we've had a couple deep passes to Wallace, and that's his forte. The only thing is, I still think Charles Johnson is going to be the target leader and leading in touchdowns for Minnesota. I think he's going to be their number one target. So I don't know about Wallace. I haven't been coming up with him really ever, just because of where you have to get him. But he's slowly starting to become, I think, almost a value pick, because there is some serious upside with him. He's a talented guy, and Teddy Bridgewater has looked awesome.
Real quick for you, Martavis Bryant, how many games last season did he have over 45 receiving yards?
6.
3.
3? Yeah.
Over
That's all right.
45.
He was later in the season to become more relevant with that offense in his rookie year.
That's what people say. However, last 3 games of the season, how many receiving yards total?
I don't know.
96. 96 receiving yards in 3 games, only 1 touchdown over the last 3 games.
Not a big sample size, 3 games.
5 receptions. I'm just saying, I mean, he had that big explosion week 7, 8, 9, 10, and then after that kind of petered out. Week 11, 11 receiving yards. Week 12 was their bye. Week 13, 23. Week 14, 109. 15, 31. Week 16, 44. Week 17, 21.
How many touchdowns in those weeks?
2. So, from week 11 on, only once did he crack 45 yards, and he only had 2 touchdowns.
But keep in mind, too, that accounts for the percentage of snaps he was out there for. You know, he wasn't playing the snaps of a number 2 there. You know, I think if he steps, if we see those snap percentages move up, which obviously we won't in the first 4 games, but after that, you'd hope you would. It's all proportional. You know, it's
right. No, I guess what I'm getting at is we were knocking Mike Evans earlier because a lot of his production came in 3 games.
Yep.
In 4 games last season, Bryant had 310 of his 549 receiving yards, and he had 6 of his 8 touchdowns.
But Mike Evans was in basically every snap from day one. Bryant kind of earned his role slowly throughout the year, and then...
But he didn't. Those 4 games were the first 4 games he played.
First 4 games he played, starting in what week?
Week 7.
So he slowly earned his role and started to play more.
He did not play a single snap weeks 1 through 6. Week 7.
So keep going. You're validating the point.
Week 7 through 10, he just showed up and blew up for 4 games, and then disappeared after that.
He's obviously a guy that
that's similar to what Evans did. Evans
was there
slow
from the
in
beginning.
Yeah, but he was slow in the beginning, blew up for a couple weeks in the middle of the season, and then faded away a little bit.
I think there's obviously some concerns with how much do you want to trust him as a coach? How much do you want to rely on this guy who's failed multiple drug tests?
Well, that too.
So
I mean,
there's those concerns definitely beyond the eye test and what he looks like on the field. I don't trust him anymore. So I mean, it's how do you put all your eggs in his basket if he's doing this? You know what I mean? It's tough to make sure you rely on him as their number 2 when you don't know if he's going to be there next Sunday. So it's, this was extremely disappointing. I can't believe you can't just stay off the weed for this.
And for me, the difference between Evans, besides the weed addiction, is that he, granted, a good percentage of his production came in those 3 games, but he didn't start till week 7, like we just discussed. So that's half of his games, as opposed to Evans, where 3 games is a fourth of his season.
Right.
So it's less sample size, as Matt mentioned, but I think it comes down to whether you believe in the talent, which is apparent, and whether you believe he'll be on the field, which is I think obviously with the 4-game suspension is the big debate right now.
Mike Wallace or Charles Johnson. Matt, you're the Vikings guy.
I already said.
You already answered it, yeah?
I was going to say, I'm going Johnson too.
I'm going Wallace. there. Just because, Johnson showed us... Matt, you've seen more Vikings games than I have, but...
Has he? I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna venture to say he has. But Wallace, I think Wallace has more big play potential, yes?
Yeah, of course.
So, for me, it's a matter of... And you believe in the Vikings defense. You don't think they're going to be coming from behind too much, right?
No.
So
they were top 10 defense last year. This is going to be the second year in the system, and they drafted the Dick Butkus Award winner plus Trey Waynes. Yeah, I think that's an offense a defense you got to target in your fantasy drafts. But beyond that,
I think these guys are literally going to finish like they're being drafted, 5-6 spots apart. But for Wallace, I think it'll be more of a roller coaster, and Johnson more consistent. But when I'm not dealing with either of these guys being in my starting lineup every week, I'm going to go with the roller coaster over the steady wideout.
The reason I say Johnson is just the apparent, obviously, connection that Bridgewater and him had last year. They're going to build on that, and there's just a lot of good talk out of camp. Johnson's, continuing what he showed last year. The guy came out of kind of nowhere, hard-working guy. He runs great routes. He's a big-bodied, almost 6'3" guy, good size, almost 220 pounds. I think he's going to be more their red zone guy behind Kyle Rudolph. Obviously, the big plays, though, are definitely going to be Mike Wallace's forte. So,
and I fell into this.
It'll be close.
I believed in Patterson last year, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask about
too.
Vikings wideouts.
We were talking before we started the podcast about Bovada and kind of all their season-long stats. So, Matt, let me throw at you this. I got Bovada's season-long stats I got up for Wallace and even guys like Bridgewater. So, Wallace they have for 850 receiving yards is the over-under and 6.5 touchdowns. You're taking the over or under on either of those?
I'll take the over on the yardage. It's pretty good on the... I think that's tough. That's a good over/under for the. I think for the yardage, he'll go.
This is what they do for a living, dude.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about some others that we really like, but yardage, I like. I like that he's going to go over. I think that's right on. I don't know. I guess with Kyle Rudolph there, I think he's kind of going to be the third option when you're talking red zone. A couple big plays. That's a good one. I'm going to say 5 touchdowns for Mike Wallace this year.
What about Bridgewater? They get Bridgewater for over or under 4,000 passing yards. I'm taking the under.
Yeah.
That's a lot for a second-year guy.
They're good at this.
With Peterson?
Yeah. Well, he's going to improve for sure, but it is an offense. They don't take a ton of risks because, obviously, ball control, they have a good defense, and they have what will be one of the best running games in the league this year, so... The yardage thing is going to be a little bit more down. The efficiency is going to be there, I think, no doubt. His goal is to have a 70% completion percentage or better this year, and based on the preseason, it looks like he's going to do that. Obviously, it's preseason, but I think that's a good one again. I'm going to go with the under on that as well.
All right, rapid fire, just real quick, a couple of teammates going very close together. We're going to do a couple of pairs of these. Larry Fitzgerald or John Brown? Fitzgerald for me. I don't understand the John Brown hype.
Fitzgerald.
Palmer loves him.
Yeah, I'd say Fitzgerald too.
All right. Torrey Smith, Anquan Bolden. Anquan Bolden for me.
Anquan Bolden.
Jeez, yeah, this is boring. Anquan Bolden.
Too boring. All right, and actually, here's a quick question. Devin Funchess, would you take him over any of those guys or all of them? I would take him over all of them except for Fitzgerald.
I already forgot who we just mentioned.
The Arizona guys and the San Francisco guys. Come on.
I'm going to put Devin Funchess. He's one, I mean, it's tough because what are we talking? I want him deep on my bench because of the upside. He's a guy I don't have to count on.
907 out of the
If I
question?
need to play him as my flex type, then I'd rather the Anquan Bolden type, the more consistent. But no, 907 is not out of the question. It's just really, it's tough to say what's going to happen there. Who's there to catch the ball? It's certainly not going to be Philly Brown or whatever his new first name is, because what did he drop? 4 passes in one preseason game the other day?
Looked horrible. Yeah, I have Funchess above all those guys, even Fitz. Opportunity. Strictly opportunity.
Obviously this has got to be early because of early ADP, but they got Kevin White and Eddie Royal going right next to each other, which doesn't make any sense. White should be pretty much out for the year.
What about Allen Robinson? I want to hear you guys' thoughts on him because I really like him this year. And it's strictly based on me watching him play football last year. I think he's a real good talent. Obviously, who does he play for? Jacksonville. That's tough. But hey, they can be coming from behind, and at least you want a piece of that passing game, I guess.
And I didn't think Bortles has looked too bad this preseason.
He hasn't.
But he gave us a scare the other night when he went down. It ended up being fine though. No big injury, but he's going to be a target monster. But it's a matter of how efficient can that offense be. They're going to be coming from behind. A lot of people like Hearns as a late sleeper, too.
Yeah.
But Robinson, obviously the more talented of the two. I think his ADP, again, is one of those guys that's just about right. I think he has no upside to break top 20 wide receiver status, but I also think he's safely in that 20 to 30 wideout range.
I don't understand the Allen Hurns hype at all. I don't.
Allen Hurns?
Allen Robinson, sorry.
Oh, Robinson, yeah.
Both of them. Fuck them. No, actually, Hurns I do like a little bit because I think he's going way too late. Robinson, I'm just not. I don't get it. How many games last season over 80 yards?
2? 1?
Rob?
I would say 3, just for difference here.
1.
There you go.
So 1 game over 80 yards receiving last year. Only 2 touchdowns on the season. I don't think it's so proven that he's going to be the guy.
Did he play 16 games, though? I don't think he played 16 games.
10 games.
10 games, right.
10 games, though? You only can break 80 yards once?
Yeah.
Once?
Yeah, still.
Again, this is another situation for me where the offense, I think, is going to sputter. I think they're going to run the ball a lot more. I think Julius Thomas is going to be their red zone guy.
For the first 4 or 5 weeks, he's not.
No, he's not. But you know what I'm saying. I don't see... Does he get a lot of targets? Yes, absolutely he does. He broke 10 targets 4 times last year. Over 7 targets in 8 straight games. So he's definitely getting a lot of targets. Pretty good receptions. 4 receptions or more.
Listen to you
9 straight games.
Right into it.
No, I'm absolutely not.
You sure?
He
keep reading those stats. Remember, it's the second year. It's also Blake's second year. TJ Yeldon's there. A little bit better offense, I think. They're going to improve.
He's a glorified Jarvis Landry. To me, that's what that's best case scenario. That's what he's going to be.
Yeah. Why is that so bad?
Because we just talked about it. We just talked about guys like Julian Edelman who are just whatever. It's just a lot of receptions, consistent yards, not a lot of touchdowns.
Why is he a glorified Jarvis Landry if Jarvis Landry is being picked over him? Wouldn't that be like the poor man's Jarvis Landry?
Sure. Semantics, whatever.
All right,
I think 10 games in. You have 10 games of him, and he's going. For me, I think he's going way too. 7th round. I think 8th round ADP. I'm not so sure that he's going to be the guy. They bounced around a lot last year between him and Hearns and Marcus Lee, and then, like I said, you just drafted Yeldon. You got Julius Thomas. I think it's going to be a lot more spread around than people realize. I don't think he's going to be that target monster he was last year.
Did we have enough talk about Devontae Adams tonight, by the way? ADP is much lower than I think you really need to take him now. When are you going to take Devontae Adams tonight if you had a draft?
12th round or later. I think he's going to miss. If I had to guess today,
Devontae Adams.
Oh, Adams. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking Parker.
No.
Adams, 5th round for me.
Ruin?
Early fourth.
Yeah, I'm 4th too.
It's just tough. You're
I
going.
think he's slotting right into Jordy, and he's going to get 130 targets this year.
130, sure, yeah. But what is that? What is he going to? 80 for 100 for 1107.
I like it.
8.
Yeah.
I mean, what stat line are you giving him?
Yeah, I like that. That sounds fine to me.
I think more touchdowns, personally. But
could be. Yeah. Like I said, I don't think there's a huge drop off. Call me crazy. Jordy is a very good player. I think anybody that's catching the ball from Aaron Rodgers is a very good player. So I think he's been kind of made by, and I'm not trying to slight Jordy, but I really don't think there's going to be a huge drop off like everybody thinks.
I don't think there's going to be a huge drop off. Maybe Rob's right. Maybe more touchdowns, because if you're gonna back your way into it, how many touchdowns for Rodgers? 35.
Yeah.
So if it's 35, how many are going to Cobb? A dozen.
Yeah.
Maybe
last year, maybe give him the
15
uptick to 15 because Jordy's gone.
So now we got 20 to spread around. You figure 5 miscellaneous that go into the running backs and whatever. Just call 5 miscellaneous. So now you got 15. You got
number 3 wide receiver doesn't get a lot of work in Green Bay, so
you got 15.
tight ends
Maybe
non-existent.
right.
I don't know, Rodgers.
They got Brandon Bostic.
I was gonna say maybe you throw 5 to the tight ends. So I guess that leaves you with maybe 10 for Adams.
Yep,
if you're projecting 35 for Rodgers. So maybe he has a little bit more touchdowns than I'd expect.
By the way, I'm reading a story the other day about the Vikings cuts. They cut Brandon Bostic, didn't make the 75-man cut, and the guy who's writing it says, and surprisingly, they cut the NFC Championship game superstar Brandon Bostic. It's like, really, you have to throw that on the poor guy? He just got cut. Oh, that's mean.
The glory days.
We talked about teammates when we said John Brown and Larry Fitzgerald. I didn't throw Michael Floyd in there. What are you guys' thoughts on Floyd?
Who?
Michael Floyd.
Yeah, to me, he's the forgotten man in that offense.
Yeah, but maybe crooked fingers may help you catch a football because they're weird shaped. I don't know. That's going to be interesting. Who knows? He's a guy that I thought was going to turn into a extremely efficient, superstar level wide receiver that hasn't quite done that yet. But I don't know. I mean, just haven't seen enough, so it's tough. You're just kind of guessing.
And the Palmer injury last year didn't help you.
Right.
Didn't help you get a sense of that. But these 3 wideouts, I mean, they're going late enough where neither are a huge gamble for your fantasy team. But one of these guys, if Palmer stays healthy the whole year and you believe in Palmer, you have to believe in one or maybe even 2 of these guys. And I think Floyd's...
I like Palmer a lot this year because I think he spreads the ball around those 3 guys. You throw in a little Andre Ellington out of the backfield, and I think Palmer has a really nice year.
Yeah, we agree, but
Yeah. But which wideout?
That's just
a
it.
little bit of everything, and
little bit of
still
everything.
Larry for me, number 1.
Guys, Pierre Garçon, I just want to touch on him real quick. I think he has a bounce back year. I think he hits 1,000 yards receiving. Crazy?
No,
I would definitely take the under on that, but I don't think it's crazy. Cousins is more of a Deshaun guy, I think, from the way
he absolutely is.
The way stats have played out. So I see an uptick for Deshaun, down for Pierre, but
down though for Pierre. Pierre already had it. I mean, last year was.
Down from his great times with Griffin. He was a target monster. 2 years ago? He didn't he have the most
He had
targets in the league?
Was it 16 straight? Every game that 2 years ago, he had over 5 receptions.
Yeah.
Great times with Griffin. That sounds like a sitcom after he's finally not in the league anymore in a couple of years.
Sounds like a really bad Family Guy episode.
Great times with
That was almost a Cleveland laugh too.
Ian Griffin and Robert.
So Pierre Garçon, real quick. I'm very surprised. 68 receptions last year, a lot more than I thought. I don't know. I just think he gets it. He puts it together.
We'll see. I'm not buying it. Matt, be the
I
be the
I always thought
tiebreaker.
he was a little bit overrated. Has trouble catching the ball at times.
All right.
Who knows? And even you say Kirk Cousins, but where is he going to be week 2? Who knows? Guy's a turnover machine.
We got a few minutes left here, so let's real quick. I want you guys to throw out some names that stick out to you that you guys want to talk about before we wrap this up. Rob, let's start with you. Who's some names that you want to throw out here that you're probably higher on than what the ADP is showing.
Guys that we haven't talked about yet, or
No, guys, we've already talked about. Let's just go back to that.
All right, yeah, let's redo the whole podcast here. No, so looking down the list here, I'm higher on Brian Quick than most. The shortened season last season doesn't really give us a great picture, but if you believe in Foles not just being a product of the Eagles system, I think you have to believe that Quick has some potential in that offense. Steve Johnson, another one that I'm higher on.
I like Stevie Johnson.
That offense, he can get the targets. I don't believe in Keenan Allen, never have. So, I see Johnson as maybe outproducing Allen this year. Yeah, which again is bold, but I definitely see it as a possibility. Later, we already touched on Parker a little bit. His ADP's a little bit later than there. The last guy I'll kind of throw out, and Marcus, I know you took him in our home league, is Brandon Coleman. He's one to watch closely early. I feel like where he's going, there'll be a few drafts where he's not drafted in.
They cut Nick Toon.
And I think
he is the number 3 guy.
He'll be the guy that blows up, week 1 that everybody, there's one every year. If you can find that one.
He's your Kyle Ogletree.
Exactly. But hopefully with a little bit more staying.
That's how bad he is, though. Who cares what his first name is?
Yeah, but one to watch. He's definitely one you're keeping an eye on in the first few weeks.
I got Eddie Royal, 91 receptions his rookie year with Jay Cutler back in town. Him and Jay hanging out, throwing some passes to each other back. I like this season, and the interesting thing is, as soon as Jay left Denver, the next season he had 37 receptions in like 14 games too. So it's not like he didn't play much. There's a connection there that is looking, and from what you're hearing, it's back again. So with Alshon being slightly banged up right now, obviously with Brandon Marshall gone, there's a familiarity with those two, with Cutler and Eddie Royal. So you're getting him. I like him quite a bit, and he's a guy who's produced the last couple seasons as well. Really, here's the name that everyone's going to make sure they remember and target late, and you can get him all day. Dorial Green-Beckham, Tennessee. He's going to be their number 1 wide receiver, and I bet you by week 1 he is going to be their number 1 wide receiver. The guy is...
Mariota's looking at him a lot.
All day. 6'5", 235 pounds, good speed. Just that guy, you heard it here first, that's all I'm going to say. He's a guy you really got to target, and you can get him extremely late in the draft. Who else is there, right, that you like in Tennessee?
Keenan Wright. Kendall Wright.
Kendall Wright.
Oh my
exactly.
God! Why am I just messing up all my names tonight?
It's just they do.
Kevin Ogletree and
they do
Kendall Wright.
I like Kendall Wright as well, but they do completely different things. Those two, so I think they're a really nice.
Delaney Walker.
Green Beckham. Just remember that name. So that's another one for me. Rob, I agree with you with Brian Quick. That's a guy I think you got to look at too. And then beyond that, I'm echoing your Stevie Johnson. He's looking like the number 2 wide receiver there in San Diego. He's had a really nice preseason. He's looking back in his Buffalo days for him. And then beyond that, I'm kind of interested to see what happens with the number 3 in Indianapolis. Right now it's kind of a dead heat with Dorsett and Moncrief. And Moncrief's had some really nice games last year, but Dorsett is he's a lot of fun to watch out of Miami. The guy can just fly. So, you got an old man, you got a T.Y. Hilton who's dealing with a concussion right now. Either one of those can really step into that T.Y. role. So I think that's a guy that you're one injury away from having a really solid player there, and I think either one of those you can basically pick up after your draft. So those are some good names late for me.
Marvin Jones. You guys left out Marvin Jones. I like him a lot.
Yeah, there's just not a ton of targets there. They're going to run the football a lot. I think Tyler Eifert's going to be a big part of this offense too. So yeah, definitely. He's looked good this preseason. He's bounced back to the breakout that you thought he might have last year. So
the other guy I like really deep, Cole Beasley. I think he's going to surpass Terrence Williams as the number 2 guy for Dallas.
He's clearly their slot guy. When you're talking
stat wise,
it's not going to be him.
Stat wise, fantasy wise, I'll take Cole Beasley over Terrence Williams.
You will?
Yes.
Is this our first beer bet of the year?
Sure.
who's going to have more fantasy points by the end of the season. I say Terrence Williams, and you say Cole Beasley.
I will say Cole Beasley. Put a 6-pack on that.
6-pack coming my way.
And I almost hate even mentioning this.
Don't say Dwayne Bowe. Well, how did I know? Just the way you were like touching your nose.
Just the way I'm bouncing a ball cap on my nose,
What the hell's
thinking.
the matter with you? Haven't you seen enough?
You weren't going to say Dwayne Bowe.
Yes, he
right?
was. I don't even know. How did I just know that? His like bottom lip was quivering. I think that's how I knew. That's what happened.
Listen.
When I say Dwayne Bowe.
Somebody in Cleveland is going to be the number one receiver.
Well, that's a very obvious statement there, but what's a number one receiver in Cleveland
Right.
on a
A
normal-
number one receiver in Cleveland is going to get 120 targets and
Who
have
knows?
70 catches. Is that
Sure.
crazy? I mean,
No, but yeah, whatever.
so if you're going to
We're
have
talking reach and late, so sure.
right, I mean, these are.
Yeah, that's true.
My God, Dwayne Bowe was the guy that's going undrafted. I mean,
So
it's
no Browns receivers are going drafted right now.
no. That's what I'm saying. Somebody, maybe not Dwayne Bowe necessarily, but some Browns receiver is going to have 120 targets and 70 receptions at the end of the year. Who's it?
Brian Hartline might even be better than him.
Yeah.
It could be right. I think I had Brian Hartline higher on my board for our draft than Dwayne Bowe, but one of those guys is gonna be there. It's just which one is it? Do you take two late round flyers and just take both of them and just see who pans out? I mean, whatever.
Can I ask anybody here, by the way, too? Did Kenny Britt break his hand last game? Does anybody know? Because
I did not
he
see that. But
punched
I'll
the
look
turf.
it up.
Just showing you how much of an idiot this guy is, and he always has been. At one point, he punched the turf after he dropped a pass so loud that I could hear it on the TV broadcast. And I was just waiting for him to have to come off the field because he's an idiot. Totally irrelevant to are we going to draft him or not? No, but I just had a feeling, oh my God, that guy just broke his... Just an idiot.
No injuries for Britt, so maybe he just went Chuck Norris on it and he punched the earth and the earth moved.
That could be. That could be.
that could have just happened. Lastly, before we go, I just want to throw out here. There it is. ADP according to Fantasy Pros. Wes Welker, not even on a team right now, has a higher ADP than Cordero Patterson. Just
Yeah.
and that's it, guys. That's how we're ending the podcast.
That's really, he had a nice kick return the other day. If you got a league that counts kick return yards, he can still do that. That's for sure.
All it takes is three guys to draft him somewhere thinking he's still a talent, and
Yeah.
he's above Cordero.
Oh, actually, one last guy I do want to mention, too. Ty Montgomery. Prior to the Jordy injury, Devontae Adams was being drafted in the 10th, 11th round because he was the quote-unquote number 3 receiver for Green Bay and going to be that handcuff if one of those guys got hurt. I don't see why Ty Montgomery couldn't be that guy either, being drafted much, much later in the 16th, 17th, 18th rounds, maybe going undrafted.
I do. Jeff Janis could be the guy instead. That's why.
I don't think so.
I don't know who it will be between those two.
All right, guys, that does it for the podcast. We'll be back again next week. Not sure actually what we're going to talk about. Probably do a little week 1 preview, maybe something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So check us back next week, guys.
See ya. Latavius Murray.